Deobra Redden, C-373-697.
Mr. Almaci's here now.
Good
morning. All right, this is on for the continuation of Mr. Redden's sentencing. When we were last here, arguments were concluded and the court had begun to pronounce sentence when an incident occurred. An incident initiated by Mr. Redden, preventing the court from completing sentencing. That is the sole purpose for today's hearing. Any other issues that may arise from the events that occurred last Wednesday will be handled at a future date by a different court. For purposes of the record, I want to make it clear that I am not changing or modifying the sentence I was in the process of imposing last week before I was interrupted by defendant's actions. I am making my calendar page from that day an exhibit for the court as it existed the moment I walked in, from prior to anything happening. Nothing's been changed, indicating the sentence I intended to impose. I'll go ahead and leave that for a moment. All right, that being said, in accordance with the laws of the state of Nevada, this court does now sentence you in addition to the $25 administrative assessment fee, $150 DNA fee, the $3 DNA administrative assessment fee, and $250 indigent defense fee, 19 to 48 months in the Nevada Department of Corrections. How much credit for time served does he have?
It's 0 days. He was on probation when he committed the offense and was revoked on probation to serve the jail time October 25th. That time it expired at about the time of the plea. So
0 days credit. Mr. Almaci, if that's just different, let us know and we'll fix it.
I will.
The motion to quash mandatory is moved at this point. And for the record, I just reflexively wrote 0 days credit time served on the notes because of what I just said. So that is in addition as of right now.
That's correct. The probation case number is for the record C-370-775.
Thank you.
Welcome back, guys. I trust you've been staying safe. Now, it has finally happened. What you saw was the sentencing of Deobra Redden by Judge Mary Kay Holthus. If you've been following this case, you will know that it started from the 3rd of January when he was actually supposed to be sentenced, and then he violently attacked this judge. The sentencing had to be held off, and we are where we are. In between the 3rd of January to now, a lot has happened. I have a lot of videos in my playlist talking about all these developments, but as at today, the 8th of January 2024, Redden has finally been sentenced by Judge Mary Kay Holthus to up to 4 years in prison. Now, let me clarify and also get into the matters arising during this sentencing and afterwards. First of all, the sentencing is up to 4 years. That is the term he's going to serve. Some people are, however, confused. They think that this up to 4 years sentencing includes what he did to the judge and the court officials, that this term of sentence encompasses all those offenses. But that is not the case. This sentence of him serving up to 4 years in prison is strictly for the original offense for which he had been convicted for and was on trial for at the time he attacked the judge. This sentence does not extend to the crime of he attacking the judge and the other things in between. That is going to be heard in another court at a scheduled date. If you listened carefully during the beginning of my video, you would have heard Judge Mary Kay Holthus talking about that bit, that the other issues about the attack itself and everything around it, as far as offenses are concerned, will be held in a separate court under a separate judge on another date. So obviously, she cannot be a judge in her own case. I'm sure when that date comes, she may even be required to testify. I don't know. But one thing is clear, that she cannot be the same judge sitting on that case involving Deobra Redden attacking her in court on the 3rd of January. So please don't get it twisted. This sentencing of Deobra Redden going to serve up to 4 years in prison doesn't have anything to do with his attack on the judge. The sentencing for that one will come when that trial is also held at a different court and overseen by a different judge. That is the first thing. Now, the second thing is the sentencing itself that was passed today by Mary Kay Holthus on Deobra Redden per his offense of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon on someone. Now, in my previous video, I was talking about the fact that Mary Kay Holthus as a judge was scheduled to pass sentence on Deobra Redden today, and some people were concerned that after what happened between them on the 3rd of January, this could be a form of medium through which Judge Mary Kay Holthus may want to retaliate against Deobra Redden for violently attacking her during court. And I was of the opinion that I don't think she will do that, because I think she's a professional, and I also expect her to be a professional. And aside that also, I believe the justice system has checks and balances which prevents her from going to modify the sentence she was originally going to hand him before he attacked her. And I was waiting to see how it will play out. And if you also watched the footage carefully from the beginning, you heard Judge Mary Kay Holthus actually explicitly talking about that bit, that nothing has changed. It's still the same sentence she was going to hand Deobra Redden prior to him attacking her that she's still going to pass. So nothing had changed, and she showed documents to that effect. And I think it was very important she made that statement, because there were insinuations out there, there were inferences out there. There are people who are actually taking this from a racist angle, which I don't support. I believe right is right, wrong is wrong. It has nothing to do with the color of your skin. And you shouldn't blindly or deliberately be defending someone's mistake just because you are having the same skin color as the person. That is my view. I don't agree to that. I believe that the rule of law rules us all. So I tip my hats off to the judge for also stating that, because if you look at the power dynamics, she is the judge, the one with the authority. In some jurisdictions, they actually say that the law rests in the bosom of the judge, which is mostly true to an extent in some jurisdictions. Now, if you look at these power dynamics, look at a judge in that pedigree and a defendant who some may say might be at her mercy. If she doesn't clearly dot her I's and cross her T's and explicitly state some of these things and provide evidence to corroborate same, you would have some factions of people twisting and inferring and trying to presuppose and convince others that she might have retaliated through giving him a harsher sentence. So it was very important that she was transparent and explicit in stating all she stated, comparing the sentence she was going to hand him before he attacked her vis-a-vis the sentence she's handing him now. And I'm very happy and impressed that that was clearly made. So as it stands now, Deobra Redden is going to start serving his sentence. But the third thing, did you notice how he came to court this time around? Specifically with regards to the security around him. And then also the fact that he had been gagged, he had been strapped or restrained by chains, and I think that they were not taking any chances. And I agree, because, you know, if you look at what happened the first time, there's no way nobody would want to give a chance, even the slightest possibility that it could happen again. No way. They would have failed twice, and I don't think anybody wants to do that. Again, looking at what happened the first time, you don't know what may happen again, given the fact that Deobra Redden's actions towards Judge Mary Kay Holthus has already created an impression that he is unstable and he can do anything at any time. So it looks like they needed to go all out in making sure that he's fully restrained. He couldn't even open his mouth to pass the kind of derogatory things that he said to the judge on the 3rd of January and even assault or abuse her verbally. And I agree. In as much as some people may not like how it looked with him coming into court like that, that is the reality of the justice system and the reality of consequences for actions. And I believe that if you agree and appreciate the fact that people need to be held accountable for their actions and contingencies need to be put in place, then you would also appreciate how come Deobra Redden was strapped and restrained and fully guarded like he was today in court. So that is the third thing. Now the fourth thing, this has to do with an interview that was granted to his sister and his foster mother. Now I listened to the interview on one of the stations I wouldn't want to mention, but when they were talking, I understand the fact that they are family. I understand they are in pain. I think his foster mother was even at the courtroom and witnessed his attack on the judge. And I appreciate how that would affect her. Looking at her son doing that and also what is being done to him and what the possibilities of the consequences might be against him. I appreciate what she's going through. But then, when I was listening to their interview and what they were talking about, they started by saying that he has mental health issues, which I respect. And then they also went on to talk about the fact that based on that, he has also been off his meds for some time and that he shouldn't have even been speaking for himself, or he shouldn't have been allowed to address the court because of his mental health issues. This was being said by his sister, and that the judge saying that she thinks it's time for him to have a taste of something new triggered him or may have triggered him. And that also at the same time, Deobra Redden was trying to let the judge know that he was trying to be better. He had gotten a job, he was getting on the right path, but the judge was using his past to judge him, sort of. So it seemed more like they were creating, some would say, excuses for Deobra Redden and then trying to pin the blame on the judge. Per the footage I watched, I didn't hear anything about any of them talking about how unfortunate it was the judge got attacked and got hands put on her by Deobra Redden. I didn't hear anything about that. If that was said at any point in time, then I missed it. But by what I heard, I didn't hear anything about that. So in as much as I appreciate their family, they are looking out for him, I also felt that they were not ready to also accept the fact that what he did has consequences and he also needs to be held accountable. In any case, you can only stand at one side to make your case or to make your point on this conversation. It's either you are standing on the mental health side, which they were standing on and making their point, or you are coming to stand on the other side where we are not really looking at the mental health, but we are just looking at what he did. You can find a middle ground if you think you have a point there. I respect it. But they were talking about mental health grounds as a basis to sort of excuse Deobra Redden for what he did. But at the same time, his sister was saying that Deobra Redden was trying to convince the judge that he's doing better and he's doing his best to improve his life. So the judge should have looked at that. But if he's not mentally stable enough to know what he's doing, how then are you trying to say he was mentally stable enough to argue his case out? I think to an extent that is an admission in itself to the fact that the guy, at least to a larger extent to an extent, knows what he's doing. I'm not prejudging him. He's already been sentenced. This is the analysis I'm making. If you think I'm wrong, just let me know. But I think they might be onto something to an extent, but no matter what it is, it also still cannot go without a bit of it holding Deobra Redden accountable for what he did. Because what he did also made the judge a victim of his actions. But this family were not speaking to that in this interview. And I think that was not cool, because if they had spoken to that, that might have made it probably a bit easier for people to also appreciate where they are coming from. The fact that they are trying to look out for their family member does not also mean they need to downplay whatever it was or pin it on the judge. I personally don't think the judge did anything wrong, because per reports, Deobra Redden was actually cleared. He was cleared as being fit for this trial. So it's not like the judge just hauled him up to court and started doing what she was doing. So I do not blame the judge. If it happens that there's anything, then this could also become another issue that may test the justice system and the various organs within it, because someone may then be wondering, how was he cleared? Because his sister is saying that he's been off his meds, and I think she also said either her or his foster mom said that they gave him his first dose of his medications when he was sent to prison after he had attacked the judge, and that prior to that he was scheduled to have his first follow-up from where he stopped in March. So basically he was off his meds. But my point is, was that the normal treatment, or something was not being done right? That was how come he was off his meds and everybody didn't bother. Because if it was that the normal treatment required him to be off his meds, then there was nothing wrong, unless the doctor also made the mistake. But if the doctor didn't make a mistake per his diagnosis and it required that he be off his meds until March, then you can't blame anybody in this. So I think there's more to this conversation other than throwing a blanket statement at it that it's mental health. I think it needs to be critiqued, it needs to be weighed and investigated to ascertain the veracity of it and whether there's any truth in there, and to what extent that truth should be considered as truth. Because when it happens this way, people begin to lean in from various sides, but at the end of the day, the judge has actually been victimized. Now, by virtue of what Deobra Redden did, 13 additional charges have now been added. And those 13 additional charges include what he did to the judge after he attacked her, and also what ensued between himself and the other officials and other things that are in between as far as the law is concerned. Now for this, it's going to be handled at a different court and by a different judge, because Judge Mary Kay Holthus cannot be a judge on that particular case because it involves her as a victim in the case. So I wouldn't be surprised if at a point in time in that case, she's even called to come and testify. I wouldn't be surprised, as well as some of the other court officials who were there when it occurred on the 3rd of January. And that's going to be a very interesting case. I'm really waiting to see how that will play out. And of course, I'll bring you the updates, because it's possible his lawyer may also be called to come and testify. Maybe not against him, but to come and give his account of what happened. And I don't even know if that's the same lawyer who is going to represent him in that case, because he was there. He saw what happened. So, and there's a camera footage. Now, this is going to be very interesting, and I'm looking forward to that case. But after all is said and done, I think that these are the key things that should be taken from this case. 1, if you have a family member suffering from mental health, I think that you should do your best to give the person the care and attention that the person needs. I'm not saying anyone around Deobra Redden didn't do this. No, I'm just saying this as a general advice. so that you help the person to sort of go through life without making mistakes based on whatever the person is suffering mentally. And then 2, learn that actions have consequences. You may have your reasons and excuses, but it does not take away the consequence. And ignorance of the law is not an excuse. That's the 3rd one. Now the 4th one is exercise restraint. You can't do everything you can't do anything or everything to anybody or everybody and expect that because you have a built-in excuse, you get away with it. 5, let's be sincere and frank with each other and teach each other how to hold ourselves accountable. Don't be biased or hypocritical just because you have an alliance with somebody who is at fault in an issue, whether it has to do with skin color, race, or whatever. Right is right, wrong is wrong. In conclusion, we are waiting to see how the next case will go, but I'm following and I'll bring you updates as and when they are due. Until then, if you know you haven't subscribed to this channel, please, you know what you have to do. Go and hit that subscribe button. Let's have a conversation in this comment section. What do you think about all this? From the inception of the case through to now, do you think that the family of Deobra Redden are onto something, talking about the fact that everything he did was on the basis of his mental health challenges? Or you think the judge and the legal system did everything right and the family of Deobra Redden should just learn to teach him to be accountable for his actions? Or you think there's an in-between where there's a mixture of something from the legal system, something from the mental health, and maybe even other things I haven't touched on? For me, I think that the judge and the justice system probably did everything right. But hey, I wasn't there. I am just making this conclusion based on the information I've gathered. Educate me if you think I'm wrong. Let me know if you agree with me. Let's have a dialogue in the comment section. Until then, I'll catch you on the next one. Stay safe out there.